Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mind, Body, and Roots. I have a good friend here, Sam, and how we met is he was actually one of the first people I met when I came to Missouri. He was technically my land apartment manager, but he's got a very unique story. Owns a lot of businesses, is an entrepreneur in his own right. And without further ado, I will let him introduce himself. So, Sam, thank you for being on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Man, I've looked forward to being on your podcast now since you told me about it at Heritage. And thanks again for having me. I'm really happy to sit here and catch up with you.
Yeah, man. No, it's a pleasure, and honestly, I enjoy always talking to you about books and a lot of the things. I feel like
Yeah.
we're very similar people.
Yeah.
I
What are you
miss.
reading these days?
Huh?
You read anything these days?
I am. So I'm actually reading The Five Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. It's a phenomenal book. I highly, highly recommend it if you haven't. I just finished Ikigai, which is another book kind of about like how to achieve flow state and just kind of grind through things when it doesn't feel like work. But yeah, that's pretty much it. How about yourself?
I'm reading. So I always try to have, we got one book for business or theology or something that I'm not really going to learn from. And then I always try to sprinkle in some books that are just fun for me to read,
Hmm.
fiction or something. And so right now I'm reading a book called The Count of Monte Cristo. You heard of that story?
Dude,
It's
that's a
pretty.
classic.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
classic.
it's a
Yep.
classic. So, and I had read it before, but I kind of forgot about it. So I was like, I'm going to read that again. So I'm reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and then I'm also reading a book. I'm reading a few actually. I'm reading a book called Reagan about
Okay.
you. That's about Ronald Reagan, and I had no idea how much he accomplished in his presidency, and just a fascinating life. He went from being an actor to president, and so
Hmm.
it's a great read if you're looking for a new biography.
Okay. I'll definitely take a look. All right.
Yep.
Well, Sam, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family, your businesses. You do a lot. So start from the beginning, please.
Well, let's see here. The beginning. I I always love to be creative and try to I love art. I love to draw, and I'm not very good at painting, but I try.
Hmm.
And I love to just I love to create. Every time I was in class, I'd be doodling and stuff. And I think early on in high school, I
Hmm.
had this idea, kind of this idea that struck me. I was like, you know what? Because I went to a small school.
Hmm.
You know what we're missing? We're missing a news team. And I just watched. You ever seen the movie Anchorman?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Ron Burgundy, of course. Okay, so I just watched that movie and I was like, we're missing the news team around here. And every morning in school we had this intercom announcement, and there'd be some kid who was like, "Good morning, today's lunch is blah, blah," and like it took though like 6 minutes,
Yeah.
and no matter what we were doing, we stopped what we were doing in class to listen to these announcements. I mean, even if it was
Hmm.
like we all had to stop and listen to whatever it was,
Hmm.
and like you know what, man, if I were to create a news team, I could get out of class for like 10 minutes every morning on my during my announcements. So I rounded together a few people and I was like, hey, I got an idea. I think we could put together a news team, make it funny, entertaining, and replace the intercom basically and get out of class for a little bit every morning. So we did. We started kind of an anchor man. I'll just have to show you pictures sometimes, but I had a full get up. I had the 70s hairstyle, everything,
That's
mustache,
hilarious.
and we started this news team. It was called Three Pinheads and a Pineapple because we had
I love it.
and it was really popular. People liked it, and it really served the purpose. But I got into branding it. I created our
Yeah.
logo and I created our slogan, and that was really where I was like, I really, really, really enjoyed that. What I
Mm.
just to get out of class became something I enjoyed because what it was, even though it wasn't a business, it was entrepreneurial enough to where I was like, man, I loved that. I want to do that again. So then I go to college, and when I was a little kid, I loved to read. I read
Mm.
books. I was such a nerd, man. I'd bring books to basketball games. Like most kids are
Mm.
hyping themselves up. I'm thumbing through Percy Jackson, or something. It was ridiculous, Harry Potter. But I love to read, and so in college though, I didn't read at all, hardly,
Mhm.
and neither did I in high school. And so in college, I got back into reading, and I read a book called Elon Musk by
Mhm.
Vance. And as I'm reading the book, I'm like, man, a lot of what he did was it's hard to describe. It wasn't anything that an ordinary person couldn't do. And in terms of his first business was called Zip2. It's just this little directions software. Now I get that you have to find a software engineer and stuff, but the concept was very simple. And so I was like, I bet I could do something like that. Maybe not. I'm not saying I'm Elon Musk, but I could take a chance. I could start a
Mhm.
business like I did with that stupid talk show. So I started a cologne company, I got together a few people, and including my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time, but she was kind of my co-founder, and we started this little cologne venture. And in a lot of ways, it was a lot more successful than I ever thought it would be. We got it in stores really across the country, and it just goes to show that you can be successful even when you don't know necessarily what you're doing. Like you don't have to know all the answers. You don't need to know the perfect, processes and strategies and all that stuff's great. You should definitely read and learn. But I think that especially when you're young, take chances, take risks. If you fail, you fail. If you
Yeah.
fail, you learn. But you might not. You might succeed. So that was Maven. It was a nice little cologne company. It still exists. So if you're ever wanting some cologne, you certainly can go check it out. But we've got, so let's see here, 8 or 9, I can't remember exactly, 8 or 9 fragrances.
Hmm.
Some are fragrances, others are roll-ons. So it's like pure oil where you just roll on it's better for your skin. And it's also more potent. It'll last longer. And so there's certainly some options. We've got different sizes, and it's a cool brand. The slogan of Maven is stay passionate, because I really wanted to kind of, I wanted the message to be to people to just look, do what you love.
Hmm.
You love to do, man. Don't choose a career only because it pays well. Don't choose a career only because you think people will accept you. Do what you love to do, and the
Hmm.
money will come. But also, you'll be fulfilled. So,
Talk to me more about that, man, because I feel like people now just pursue money and they don't follow their passions anymore. So tell me more about your mindset. Like, what forced you into that? What kind of pushed you in that direction? And what do you encourage people to do to get more into that?
well, let's see. I always encourage people to read books. I think
Hmm.
reading is the probably the best thing you can do to be inspired.
Hmm.
But once you get an idea of what you love, and I think it doesn't take long to understand what you love to do. And once you figure that out, man, then you almost work backwards. Instead of
Hmm.
trying to find the thing that makes money, you find what you love to do, and then you figure out a way for that to make you money.
Hmm.
So instead of starting with the money, you start with what you're passionate about, and then you make that into a business. And that's really what I did with Maven, because I knew that I loved to create,
Hmm.
that I love to try to create, even when it's stupid stuff like that talk show, but I knew I enjoyed that. So I thought, well, I want to create something. I just don't know what it is. And it ended up being cologne, but I knew nothing about cologne. I wasn't, I wasn't an alchemist. I wasn't, I knew nothing about that. We started in my parents' attic. We really had no reason to succeed in cologne because we knew nothing about it. I just knew I wanted to create a company, and it really
Hmm.
could have been basket weaving, could have been whatever. It just ended up being cologne. The cologne was a way for me to monetize what I love to do, which was creating a business.
Hmm. Fair. Fair enough, man. That's I wish more people thought like you did, and I wish that people would read more because I generally find hard to talk to people about books because when I ask them, like, "Oh, I haven't read since school," and I'm like, "Hmm, okay." It makes it tough to connect, and I think reading books. It was something my father also taught me. He was like, "Educate yourself and just love to read and explore because the more you do that, the more connected you will feel to people." And he is right. Like when I speak and talk to about books with other people that also read books, it's like an instant spark, and it's fantastic. And I feel like when I talked to you the first time about books we literally talked for like 30 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. It was great. Like we were just exchanging titles and books. I still remember that. I was like, man, that's like one of the few people like I only have a handful of people I've ever done that with, but I remember them because it's fun. And I think when you read, you have knowledge and
I said, and it's kind of unusual. People don't
it's
read very.
unusual, but it's a lost art, I think. And you're right about that. And I think once you read and you explore, it's a safe way to kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like. And in that, you can find your passion.
Yeah. Well, and you think about when I started Maven, really it had started after I read Elon Musk. So
Hmm.
you kind of make the argument, if I hadn't read that book, would I've ever started the company? Probably I would have, but I wouldn't have known as much about, I learned a lot from that book. I learned a lot about, branding, and even kind of the business model, how to make money. A big thing Elon Musk believes in, if you read his book, you'll know this. He deletes. It's the word he uses. He deletes. He's always finding things that are unnecessary and removing them. So he'll bring his product down to what's called irreducible complexity, to where it can't, it's its simplest form. So like
Hmm.
you take Tesla, he removed the car keys. Now the key is just on your phone,
Hmm.
and they're wanting to remove the steering wheel, so it's just all autopilot. And so, but that's the big thing with him is delete, delete, delete. So I applied that same logic to Maven, and it allowed me to have much better margins. I made a lot more money because I deleted stuff that was unnecessary.
Very cool.
All
Very
that to
cool.
it helps to read, certainly.
Yeah, I agree. I think reading is the most important skill, and it's a lost art now in today's generation. Now, people would rather scroll and do the thing, which is fine. I'm not judging, but I think reading books and analyzing books and having thoughtful discussions, that's where true strength and knowledge lies.
Yeah. I think people get hung up. I've also known the other kind of person. They read a lot, they listen to podcasts, they consume all sorts of information, but then they don't take the chance. They
Also
don't
valid.
start the company. They don't, that there's a fear factor.
Hmm.
You've got to overcome kind of both those things. You've got to be a constant learner, and then you've got to be willing to take the chance, knowing that you might fail.
Yeah, that is true. And I think I read something that I think also Sahel Bloom was talking about. He said that fear is basically it's just inexperience in another form. You're afraid because you don't have the experience. But when you take that chance and that jump and you experience it firsthand, then there is no such thing as fear in reality, if you think about it. So I was like,
Wow.
wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. But the only way to get experience is to face the fear that you have. So
Correct. Yeah,
it's one of those things where you almost have to, it's almost a paradox. You've got to overcome your fear to get the experience to overcome fear.
absolutely. All right. And so I know you started a second company while we were still at Heritage. Do you want to talk about that? Because that's your second entrepreneur
Sure.
venture.
Man, that thing has been a challenge. So I started a company called Arion.
Mhm.
It's a pickleball paddle company. In fact, I've got all these prototypes sitting here next to me. It's been a real challenge. I used to think, gosh, creating a paddle, that can't be difficult. It's kind of one piece, and all you got to do is print on it. And what's nope, nope. You'd think it was like I'm building a quantum computer or something with how difficult it's been. It's very expensive.
Mhm.
You wouldn't guess that. I wouldn't guess that, but it's very, very expensive. So the margins are more slim. And the big idea, well, let me actually give you a little more context. One thing really, really important to me about this company, kind of the big, brand, so to speak, was that I wanted this to be an American made product.
Mhm.
So creating every inch of it within America. I'm not
Mhm.
outsourcing from China or anywhere like that. It's all domestic.
Mhm.
And then so that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm donating money to American causes, like like our national security, improving that, improving our militaristic strength and prowess, and then I'm donating money to churches because I think that it's kind of a can of worms, but I think that our freedom of thought really, at the end of the day, stems from our freedom of religion. I think if you were to remove our freedom of religion, we would lose our freedom entirely.
Yes.
I think that's almost like the cornerstone. So the last bit of money I give to that. So altogether, I give 15% of our total of our income to these
Mhm.
different 5%, 5%, and 5%. So when you remember all that, it makes it very, very, very expensive, and the margin's very slim. If I were to get the paddles from like China, maybe it'd make it cheap, but I'm just not willing to do it.
Mhm.
So that's been a very challenging business model. I wouldn't recommend uh, you know, if you're going to start a company and do the whole like American made thing, I love it. I agree with it. God bless America. July 4th was just yesterday. So I agree with you 100%, but just know that that is the hardest way possible of creating a product and selling it.
It's tough because a lot of things are now exported out just because of labor, right? Labor itself is expensive. Because if you
Yeah.
think about it, right, Sam, like it's a paradox. I mean, we shipped out. I mean, you're reading Reagan, so you know that Reagan and Nixon and them and former presidents all shipped it out because labor here was just getting expensive. Living here is expensive. So with that, to do a product here, yes, you can create jobs and you can help people, but with that, you also have to pay them benefits and pay and all these things, which then either you increase your price and pass it off to the consumer, or you take a hit on the margins. And unfortunately, when it comes to bigger corporations, not small businesses such as yourself, they would rather sacrifice quality or sacrifice everything but the margins so that they can turn a profit. And that's the unfortunate part. So in my opinion, I think it's lovely to have products made here, but it also comes with a higher price and cost to the consumer. So as much as we say we like to, I think it's a striking balance that we still need to export goods because it's not possible. I mean, if with the typical American being on a 40,000-ish salary, I'm not too sure how accurate that figure is now. It's been about 2 years since I read that. It will always be difficult for the average person to buy things made just solely in America. Yeah, it's just going to be tough from just a macroeconomic standpoint. But should we definitely try higher end goods and services? Absolutely. But I think for like the simpler stuff, it's not a bad thing to export just because it makes it easier for the average American to afford it. That's just my
Oh,
thinking.
it's not a bad thing at all. In
No,
fact, it's a good thing. It improves our foreign policy. It improves our diplomacy among other nations. So
correct.
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
That was kind of my brand. I wanted
Yeah,
to build America's paddle,
correct. And
and
that's tough. That's tough.
it was very hard. And the thing is, every single paddle on the market, I mean, everyone, you look at
Hmm.
every brand, they're all from China.
Correct.
Everyone.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all pretty much the same thing. They probably come from the same factory, honestly.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
They just have different brands stamped on them, but it's the
Correct.
same product. So that's when I was like, you know what? What we need is we need an American made
Yeah.
paddle. It's going to feel different. It's going to play different. And honestly, it's really, I love pickleball. I played college tennis. And so pickleball is kind of the closest thing to tennis, I think. And it's more people play pickleball. So it's always been a fun sport for me to play. But at the end of the day, it really had nothing to do with pickleball. It was more just I wanted to support my country that I love.
Yeah.
And even if I'm just giving, some like pennies basically, at least I'm contributing.
Hmm.
That was what I was like, I want to do something for our country. I want to help them. I want to So that was the whole idea of Arion, to start a company that will not only not pay me, but pay our country.
That's it's a very honorable cause. It's not something easy to do, especially with like you said, like the margins and stuff. And I think there's a couple of good companies. Like there's a wallet and leather good company out of Seattle that I bought from. It's everything's American made called Travax. I really like it. The quality is fantastic, and it's like it's nice. But like for that fraction of the cost, I could get it from overseas, right? But I did want to support an American business because I saw the quality and the effort that they put in. And then people would ask, "Well, that's a really cool wallet." I was like, "Yeah, it's Travax is a good company." So when you can, I think for higher end goods, we definitely have the ability and the labor to do it. But we have to also educate and understand and explain to people, hey, listen, the best products can be made here, and the quality is going to be better, but it's also going to be probably 2 or 3 times more expensive.
Yeah.
And I
Unfortunately,
think, and unfortunately, it's just because of labor and insurance and people trying to live every day. They're workers, right? Like anyone else. So as long as people understand that and we can get them to explain why we do what we do, I think it would be a better way to make more products here, but also still rely on the world. Because I think I'm not a big fan of what you would say is blocking trade in thought. If you read books, you realize that the world runs in circles. And if you have good relationships with all countries and you treat them fairly and, in means, I think that you could have a good flow of technology, food, labor, everything. And that's what books have taught me.
yeah,
But it's hard to do.
it's very hard. With Arion, the other thing is um I wanted it to be almost a symbol
Hmm.
of every time you buy a paddle. Yes, you're getting a pickleball paddle that will improve your game because it's a great paddle, but you're also strengthening our country. You're Every time you buy a paddle, you're putting, we'll say 10% toward our national security, our border, 10% towards our military might, 10% towards our churches. With every dollar you spend on a paddle, 15 cents is going towards our country's strength.
Hmm.
That was what I wanted. I wanted it to be a symbol of you're almost donating to your country. So, that was kind of the big idea. I also I haven't really talked about this. So this is kind of who knows, but I kind of have a political interest. I'd love to go into politics at some point. I don't know, the scale or whatnot, but I would love to do that because I love our country. I love
Hmm.
America. It's a wonderful country. I think we take it for granted.
Hmm.
Me myself included, but I think anyone who lives in our country, we take it for granted. We take for
We do.
granted our freedom. We take for granted our wealth. You forget how wealthy America is. It's unbelievable. And Ronald Reagan, speaking of him, he said famously, uh, and I might be paraphrasing here, but our freedom is only ever one generation from being lost.
Correct.
It's not something that we can just assume will last forever.
No.
We've got to be vigilant and continue to protect our freedom. So I don't mean to ramble here, but
No.
it's really what prompted me to start the company was I want to bring some awareness, if I can, to improving and protecting our wonderful country.
Makes sense. I like it. Do you have the product on hand? Can I see it? Can we see it real quick?
Sure, I've got a prototype here. It's missing the edge guard, but here's what it looks like. So, like I said, it's called Arion. This particular paddle is called the Pro Blade. Um, it's kind of cool. The company I'm using for the carbon fiber, which is the face,
Yeah.
is actually an aerospace company. So this is the same
Wow.
carbon fiber they use to make jets and aerospace products. So I think that's kind of neat. Yeah, it's a really really nice paddle. This is not something you'd buy like at Walmart or whatever. This is a very very premier paddle that is certain to improve your touch, and also this sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. It's going to improve your power. That's really the biggest thing. I wanted a paddle that played like tennis, and in
Hmm.
tennis, you got a ton of power. I
Yeah.
mean, too much. Like it can be hard to control. You've got to use a lot of spin to control the ball. And in pickleball, you don't really have that power. It kind of feels like you're hitting the ball with like a plank of wood or something. So I wanted to introduce a paddle that played like tennis, had a lot of power, and that's what Pro Blade is. So
Very cool. Very
thank
cool.
you.
We should play a game.
What's that?
I want to learn pickleball. I'm not very good at it, but I kind of want to, learn from you. Maybe I can use some of those paddles to kind of like see the
Yeah,
difference. It'd be kind of cool. We should do
sure.
that.
I would love to play. I'm always looking for excuses to play pickleball. So
Yeah.
I'd love to play with you. I used to give tennis lessons and and get paid as a coach. So
Wow. There you
I'll give
go.
you a free one. We'll comp it.
Perfect. Hey man, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So okay. So you have all this business stuff. Now, if you're okay with it, I know your family's into real estate and all that. Do you want to touch on that as well? It's just kind of
Love
cool. Like,
to.
yeah, please do. Because I read your was it your grandfather? It was your grandfather's book, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I was like, I'd love for you to kind of touch on that.
I would love to talk about TLC. I think at the end of the day, my wife can probably hear us. She's probably rolling her eyes, but I talk about TLC all the time. Like
Yeah.
that's my favorite thing to talk about. It is the most extraordinary company I've ever seen. It really is, and I'll explain that more, as we go. But I think if you were to kind of say, "Well, Sam, what's kind of your dream? What's your aspiration?" I would say, "Oh, Arion's fun. That's cool. We'll make a paddle. Maybe we'll help. We'll donate some money." But at the end of the day, that's just a kind of a venture that I can get some new experience and honestly play with my own paddle. That was really I'd love to do that. I play a lot of pickleball and I want to play with my own paddle. That'd be fun. But it's not kind of my dream, I'd say.
Mhm.
When I lay in bed and I think about what I want my life to look like in 30 years, I'm not thinking about pickleball. I am, however, thinking about TLC. What can we
Mhm.
do with this company? And I do think that the sky's the limit with TLC. And you say, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean the sky's the limit? I don't mean that in a sense of we'll make a lot of money. I don't, money is not the goal for me with TLC. I think the impact we can have though is extraordinary. I think
Mhm.
TLC changed the world. I really think so. And I'd love to tell you why.
Yeah,
So it's,
please. I want to learn. I've only read your book, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool vision. So you tell me your side.
well, I'll tell you kind of the origin. And if you've read the book, certainly part of that. But my grandpa was a music teacher.
Mhm.
So he went around teaching music and at different schools. And as you might know, that's not a very lucrative
Mhm.
career. Teaching is not very lucrative. So there was always kind of an anxiety he had of, am I ever going to be able to retire? Probably not. And then also, will I have any kind of legacy to pass down to he had three sons. So he's thinking, do I have any legacy to pass down to my sons? And so there was, this anxiety. And my grandpa's someone, if you ever talk to him, you'd know. Have you ever met him actually? He's in the lobby.
No.
Well, we'll have to set that up. But
Okay, that'd
he's
be cool.
who's always talking about dreaming big. He's always like, think big. And he's a music teacher, so he almost felt like he was under, like he could do more, you
Mhm.
know. And so one of these days, though, eventually he lost his job.
Mhm.
He's one day he's walking down the beach, and you read this in the book probably, but he's walking down the beach, and the book says like there's kind of tears in his eyes. He's really kind of having almost an anxiety attack, and he's praying, and he's praying to the God, and he's saying, "Lord, help me. What do I
Mhm.
do? A job? I need to." Eventually, he gets led to Springfield, Missouri, because at the time
Mhm.
they lived in California.
Mhm.
He gets a teaching gig in Springfield, and eventually he has this desire for real estate and kind of this interest in real estate. He'd read a bunch of books, which again goes back to make sure you're reading books. But he'd read books, and he's like, I really think that I can retire if I can just invest in some real estate. So he gets this little 3 bed 2 bath house and one unit, and so he's managing it, and he's like, this is actually really, I enjoy this. And so he's like, I wonder if I can do it again. So he gets another house and another house. And eventually he's got a string of 2 or 3 or 4 houses, and he buys his first little 10-unit property. So it's this multi-family, complex, and it's 10 units. It's, if I remember right, it's 9 1-bedrooms and 1 3-bed. No 2-bed. I don't know why, but no 2 beds. You'd be all set. We'd get you a 1-bed. You'd be good to go. But anyway, he gets that little 10-unit building, and I think it was around this time. Well, it was a little bit later. He's able to acquire a few more pieces of real estate, and he gets himself up to 100 units, give or take, which was his dream. His dream was, if I can get 100 units, I will be set. I'll be set. I can retire. I'll have something to pass down, and that'll be it. And that was kind of his goal. So he gets to 100. I think it was 146 units. He actually overachieved his goal. And he had done that with these multifamily projects. And so one day he's taking a walk because he loves to walk, and he's taking, and this is really maybe my favorite story of TLC. This story right here. He's taking a walk, and all of a sudden the Lord speaks to him, and he said, "What?" It's not very often the Lord speaks to a person, but I believe with all my heart he did to my grandpa in this moment. So the Lord speaks to him. The Lord says, "Your vision is too small." And so my grandpa says, "Okay, what's your vision then?" And so the Lord replies, "I want you to build as many units as the stars." So, and it's kind of during the evening. So he looks up, and there above him is this starlit night with, I mean, multitudes of stars in every direction, as far as his eyes can see. And I always love this part. God says, "Can you count the stars?" Kind of a rhetorical question. And no, the answer is no. I'm no, astronomer or whatever, but I know that there are more stars than what we could ever count or even perceive. So, I mean, in that moment, my grandpa has this like nitro boost of motivation. He's like, wow, I'm going to dedicate my whole life to building as many units as the stars, over my head. That's my dream. That was his dream. And so and he says in the book, he's like, I know it's going to take the rest of my life to do it, but that's what I'm going to do. And when you look back on, he's 82 years old. Dad is now 50. And when you look back on those, because those two guys have built together for really my whole career and most of my grandpa's career. When you look back on their career, they've probably built 7 or 8,000 units, just them two.
Wow.
So when you compare that to my grandpa's early vision of 100 units, it's amazing. It's amazing what he achieved it's amazing what you can achieve when you dream big. Like
Correct.
And the cool thing about his story, I think, is that like how many companies can you think of where this is true? It wasn't his vision necessarily.
Yeah.
It was God's vision for his company. I mean, I think that's about the coolest thing I've ever.
That's unique. Yeah.
So, and it really, for me, people might say like, gosh, must be nice. You're the third generation and life's easy, I guess. And then, the truth is it's not easy. There's a lot of pressure that comes with being me, but the idea is I don't want to just I don't want to just, whatever involvement I have with TLC, I don't want to just coast it and we stay at 3,000 units or, where we're at. I would want to, like the original vision was, I'd want to build as many units as the stars. That really is where I'm at with it. So that means I want to take a lot of risk. And because at the end of the day, you say, well, what's so great about building units? Why do you do that? What, was that just, you just make money? Is that why? The truth is no, we do make money, but the reason we do it is because, and this, we put a Bible in every unit, and I have seen what that's done. I've seen the difference that makes. I've seen people's marriage, come together when, believe me, when it wasn't, when they moved in. I've seen people come to know the Lord when they hadn't at the time of moving. I've even just seen people say, you know what, it just made me feel peace in my new home. Even just that. But it makes a difference. When we put a Bible in each unit, it really makes a difference. It helps people. And I believe it helps us. But the touching thing is it helps people. It's almost like a cause.
Yeah.
But the only way we can have the impact I want to have is if we can build more units. And
Makes
so
sense.
the more units we build, the more Bibles we can give to people, the
I
more
love it.
people helped.
Very cool. Hey man, it's definitely unique. You don't hear like owners doing that or having these visions to like build more and to expand. And I think like I could see you embodying that. I mean, you from whatever in the book, your personality really is a lot like him. Reading and consuming, but also taking out the risks and going for it. So, I know you'll get there with time.
Oh, I hope so.
I know you will.
DLC is one of those companies where it's like it's such an extraordinary company. It's the and it's hard to describe kind of over a podcast, but the potential that TLC has to help people and to just honestly just change entire cities is amazing, is extraordinary. So I make sure that whatever involvement I have, I'm pushing us forward, not holding us back.
Very good. Honestly, man, like I feel like you and I could talk about the mind and the craft and entrepreneurship for probably hours. But
Probably.
I think we should shift a little bit towards fitness because that also, I think, is the balancing act of all this entrepreneurship. I know you talked about you played tennis, but how do you stay fit mentally, physically, spiritually? What do you do that allows you to chase your vision every day?
Man, put me on the spot. Actually, that's an area I need to improve in.
Okay.
I've kind of been on and off with working at with exercising in the gym and
Mhm.
stuff. I'm not as consistent as I'd want to be, certainly.
Mhm.
And I'm always I got a question for you. Do you work out in the evening or in the morning?
Both.
Both. Boy, rolling my eyes. Okay. Just
Yeah, I'm
kidding.
sorry, man. I get up, I go to the gym upstairs, and then in the evening I go to rage.
Really? Wow. Okay. I've always wondered, like, is it better to go in the morning or is it better to go at night? Because you figure at night you've eaten 3 times or so you've
Yeah.
got all these calories that you can burn and stuff. But in the morning, you get it out of the way. So I see the pros, I guess, for each one. Do you have a suggestion, even?
I do. So
Okay.
I've done both. So I've been doing doubles for quite a while, probably like 6, 7 years, 7 years now, probably. And only because I enjoy it. It literally like just gives me a lot of enjoyment. So in the morning is what I recommend all people to start at. Why? If you start by doing hard things in the morning, meaning getting up, washing your face, going right to the gym without even eating, maybe drinking a sip of water, I think it sets the tone that you're ready to take the day on and grab it by it sounds weird, by the throat, right? And just tackle it, right? And if you go for a quick run or a quick bike or just a quick stretch or whatever, you just feel more alert, you feel more ready. And then throughout the day, you're pretty alert. Yeah, you might get tired by the end of the day, but you go home knowing that you did your all best and you have no excuses. And so I always tell people if you're starting off your journey, start in the morning. It's the harder thing to do, but it's the better thing to do. And why do you think a lot of militaries, you could talk to like the British, the Americans, the Dutch, just military all around the world. Why do they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go for runs? There's a reason. It kind of starts your day, it sets the tone. And with that, you can kind of dominate your goals for the day. And that's how I look at it. And
I
then the
like.
afternoon's just kind of like a light lift post work for me, being a dentist and, dealing with people, it's already really difficult. It kind of helps me decompress. So that's why I go twice a day.
Okay. Well, that's good advice. Certainly, I think the big idea for me is I need to do it. Like, I can think about it all day long. I can kind of debate morning, evening, whatever. I just need to pick one and go.
Correct. And the first 90 days is the hardest.
Yeah.
If you can get 90 days of consistency, it will just become a part of you.
Well, and like I said, there have been phases of my life where I was consistent, and then something would, like, for example, last time
Yeah.
I used to work out every day, and then I hurt myself. I hurt like
Yeah.
I injured somehow. I like slipped one of my ribs out of. It sounds disgusting, but anyway, so I'm kind of on the mend, and I just never I never got back to it, and that's it's shameful to say, but that's what got me off last time, and but I need to go back because it makes a difference. And
Mhm.
like I said, it sets the tone for the day, but honestly, it sets the tone really for more than that. Sets the tone
Mhm.
for your entire mentality.
Correct. Yeah, and honestly, like I mainly do the doubles. I would say Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm kind of just I do one. I mainly like focus on lighter weights, decompression, and I'll still do cardio and lift, but they're lighter sessions, right? Just to kind of keep my joints moving. And then like on Mondays, depends on how I feel that Monday morning or that Tuesday, I'll take a rest day, but it's an active rest. So I'll just stretch. I'll do a morning stretch and I'll do an afternoon stretch. And I just focus on flexibility that day. And if you look at, a lot of movement philosophy nowadays, that's the thing that keeps you young. It's not only what you eat, it's how you treat your body. So being flexible, being pliable, it prevents injuries. It really helps with your mental state. And it's also a light workout, right? It doesn't stress your body too much. Because when you do doubles or you work out a lot, you stress your body. It's your cells. And I can go into the science, right? But at a cellular level, it always stresses you up. So you always have a day or two to just kind of decompress. And so either Mondays or Tuesdays, I'm like kind of decompression is where I just stretch all day, and that's all I do. But that's how you stay young. And if you want to, accomplish big things, I think that's the biggest part.
Well, I certainly need to get back into it. And you said, how do you better yourself physically? I also try to play tennis as much as I can.
Yes.
Fun for me. It's cardio, but it's fun. If
Mhm.
the thing I hate, it's cardio.
Oh, I hate
I
it too, dude.
cardio.
I absolutely hate cardio.
I hate it. I hate running for nothing. Like you're just running on a treadmill. Oh my, like, yeah, it's hard to do, but it's so to me, it's like, what am I doing? What am I actually? I'm not running to anywhere. There's no destination.
Yeah.
It just seems like I'm wasting my time, even though it's not. I understand it's not, but it's hard for me to get in the mindset of like, there's a purpose to what I'm doing. I need to feel
Mm.
like there's purpose. That's very central for me.
Yeah.
Tennis, there's an obvious purpose. I'm trying to win, and the card is kind of a background thing that's happening. But I'm trying to win the match.
Correct.
So I try to play as much tennis as I can because that kind of sneaks in the cardio, but I still enjoy it. I'll tell you.
Very good.
So this just goes to show that I am very competitive, and
Mhm.
I to lose. I mean, it just breaks my heart to lose, and I love to win. But I really only do things when I have a kind of a purpose to what I'm doing. So I went back. This is back when I lived at Heritage, and with kind of the rooftop gym there, and I go into that, the Peloton room.
Yes.
So remember, I have not ran so much as 5 seconds for
Mm.
like 2 years at this point. Like I had played lunch, I played tennis, and then I stopped. And then now we're all the way like probably 2 or 3 years later, and I have not done any exercise at all.
Mm.
I just worked. And so I get on this Peloton because Brooke, my wife, is like, you need to work out. You need to do something. I'm like, okay. So I go down there to the Peloton and I noticed there's like a race option. There's like you can click one and it's
Yep.
like, there's 20 contestants and it's real people. So I start on there and I didn't actually know it was a race when I first started. So I start on there and there's this leaderboard on the top right. And there I am at the smack dab game, just go like, oh, it's kind of nice. I'm in 17th place, not 20th. Okay, so pretty soon I'm like, I'm gonna win this thing. I'm gonna win the whole race. It's like I don't remember. It's like a probably a 3 mile thing, and I'm in
Yeah.
by the end of it though. Like I am absolutely just like killing myself. Like I'm going so hard, and I do end up winning. I get first place in the end.
I love
But
it.
I got off the Peloton. I kid you not. I almost like fell down. Like I almost couldn't walk. Like I had to stick man shimmy my way
Hey.
back to
Uh,
when I got home and I drank a protein shake and like my hand was shaking. Like it was ridiculous. To go from not working out ever to just yeah, I think I almost died that day.
Hey man, whatever floats your boat. Honestly, it's fun, and I do like the Peloton. I think it's like one of the cool things about being at the Heritage. It's a fun thing. I don't see a lot of people using it. I know I definitely use it. I don't really know if other people use it, but it's kind of cool.
I used it 2 times. That was one of them. But I guess the reason I said that story is that's what I need is I need to almost trick my mind of like you're not doing this just to do it. You're doing this because it's winning. You're winning.
Mm,
I need to frame it that way so that I'm motivated to do it.
mm.
Because that's the thing with working out to me is I just to me it feels like such a you check the box type thing, and it's hard for me to find purpose in it. So that's my challenge is finding purpose. But I'll figure it out because I need to. I need to work out.
I'll give you a purpose if you want one, and it's a very strong one. And I always challenge people that are lazy about it. I'm like, you don't do it for yourself, right? You do it for your kids and your grandkids, because how my thinking is that's why I do it, right? I want to be 80 years old. I want to be rolling on the mats with them when they're like 5 years old, 4 years old. So I always envision that. I don't want
Huh.
to be like in a cane or tired or like, "Ah, I can't spend time." No, no, I'm gonna be on the floor wrestling with them and rolling around with them and hanging out with them and being the same young 20-year-old, 30-year-old that I am, you know? And so
It's
that's my
really
vision.
kind of profound, actually.
Yeah.
I had
So,
never thought of it. I'd always thought of it more selfishly. Just live longer, right? I never thought of it how I could impact kind of the future generations. That's really, that's good. I'm actually glad you told me that.
yeah.
Let's
So that's how
try
I think of it. That's how I wanna do it for my kids and my grandkids.
kids and grandkids. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I think it's just a good vision for people that say, "Ah, I don't wanna work out." It's like, you gotta have a purpose other than yourself always. So that's how I think about it.
And I love sports. So like I
Heck
want
yeah.
to make sure that when I'm like you said, when I have grandkids or kids, I want to be able to actually, whatever sport they enjoy, basketball or something, I want to go out there and play with them.
Heck
And
yeah.
not just be, I want to actually be a formidable player that they can play
Hmm.
against, whatever sport it
Yeah.
is.
I
And to
want
do
them
that,
to beat me.
what's that?
It's that competition in me. It's like I want them to beat me.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
but not go easy on them. You want them to beat you because they did,
Yeah.
So uh that's good. That really changes my mentality with it.
So
Plus, you want to hear something really stupid?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
My wife, she makes these protein shakes that are
Uh-huh.
really good. Like she
Yeah.
figured out the recipe or something. So I'm not kidding you. My whole motivation back then was just to drink a protein shake at the end. Like it's like Pavlov's dogs or something. Like I literally only worked out because I was like, I get to drink a milkshake at the end.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah, seriously, it's like giving a cookie to an ape or something. That's what it was like. But
That's too
anyway,
funny.
so that's part of my motivation. I get myself a milkshake, but the grandkids one is probably a little more powerful than that. I hope.
I mean, I think it fits well with you because like you talk about vision and you talk about real estate and opening up a bunch of units, right? But you can only do that when you're healthy, right? If you take care of health, people talk about money, right? But in my opinion, the most important thing in life, it's not money, it's your health. Because without health, you can't do anything. Like they say, the thing is, people when they have money, then they don't have time. People that have time don't have money, and then people that don't have health, wish they had health. So that's how I restructure and reframe my
Yeah,
day every day.
that's good. And TLC properties and real estate in general is extremely stressful. Like I
Mhm.
joke with people sometimes, I'm like, man, I wish we had like an ice cream shop or something. Why didn't we do that? Why didn't we do like a little ice cream shop or like a flower store? Why do we do real estate? That is so stressful. Multifamily development is so stressful. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, it's stressful in every way. It's stressful in the landlord aspect, working with so many people, knowing that 5 to 6% of these people are going to be not good. They're going to be very. You have evictions. You'll have it just be there'll be challenges in that regard, but then also the risk.
Mhm.
Like I said, TLC Properties, my dad, my grandpa, it's not a publicly traded company. They
Mhm.
personally risk. They personally like Heritage. My dad and grandpa are the sole two owners. They out of their own pockets built and developed that building. There was no
Mhm.
investment. There's no, you know what I'm saying? It's their
Yeah.
own money.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous level of pressure and a taxing amount of stress. So I want to make sure I'm fit because honestly, with that level of stress, I have to be fit. Otherwise, it's going to have a serious toll on my body.
Yeah.
Y-
Absolutely.
I'm 23 and I'm, I'm by no means at a high level in the company, but even now I've got a level of leadership responsibility, and also I just am always in front of the customers. I'm always in front of residents and stuff, and so even now it's certainly a taxing position just because it's very demanding. Like you said, when you lived at Heritage, you're like, I feel like I could always just text Sam and he's right there. I
Yeah.
am just right there. I work a lot
Yeah.
and it's taxing, so I want to make sure I'm fit.
Yeah. Good. And I think that's important. That's part of it. And I think that's what, like, when I went to other buildings and stuff, I just felt you had that personal touch, And I miss it, obviously. It was just nice to have.
Who knows? I think I'm gonna be at Heritage a little more in the future. So you might be seeing me.
Dude, that'd be great. I'd love
Uh,
to. All
but
right.
yeah, I love Heritage, so I'll be glad to be back and help where I can.
That'd be lovely. So, moving on to the last part of the podcast, the roots. Tell me about where you grew up, what it was like. You kind of mentioned the whole weatherman story and going to a small high school. Did you grow up in Springfield? Did you have any difficulty? Did you see a lot of diversity? What was your childhood like, basically? So talk to me about that.
So yeah, I was born in Springfield. I lived here till 2010,
Okay.
and then moved to Florida for a
Okay.
year. We moved back because kind of a long story, but TLC basically we needed to move back. Otherwise, we are going to lose our business. And so, to answer your question, though, I'd say Springfield's been it's been a very impactful city to live in because it's so. You probably noticed there's a lot of churches. It's
Yes.
called the Bible Belt. You know,
Correct.
there's a lot of churches. There's a lot of theology. I would say it's a very
Mhm.
theistic city, and that was very impactful for me because as a young kid, I was kind of I wasn't into religion at all. I mean, not and you say, "Really?" Yeah, I wasn't. My family was very Christian. My grandpa, of course, you read his book and you'll know pretty quick, probably by page 1 that he's a Christian, but I really wasn't. I was not very bought
Mhm.
into it. And we may have talked about this at Heritage, I don't
We
remember, but
did.
we did. I really wasn't bought in. I was like, "Yeah, whatever, maybe." But I just kept going to, my parents kept bringing me to church over and over and over, and eventually, when I was about 20, so not very long ago, 3 years ago,
Mhm.
well, maybe 19, I don't know, but I finally was like, "You know what? Actually, you mind if I tell you the story?" It's not a long story.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, okay, because I love to tell this story because it's
Yeah.
just it just I'm a lucky guy. I married a wonderful woman, and but when we were dating, we were kind of around the time we were working on Maven. Actually, I bring her to church with me because I'm thinking, that's a good thing to do. That's just a nice. I'm a Christian myself, really, but I thought if I bring her to church, that's kind of the good boyfriend type thing to do, type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I bring her with me to church, but she gets saved. I mean, I didn't have that on my bingo card. She gets saved, and so as the weeks go by, I keep bringing her to church, and I mean, she's got her hands up, in worship, and she's praying all the time. She's praying. Like we'll be in the kitchen, she's like, "Dear Lord, help me to not burn the chicken." Like it's like all the time, and I'm just sitting there like, "Oh my goodness, maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know." Like I'm getting annoyed. And so one day we're sitting at church, and she's real into it, and she's praying and like praying for me, I think. And so internally, and this just shows how bad of a person I was, and internally I'm really annoyed. I'm like, dude, what
Mhm.
is real? Honestly, holy cow! So I was like, okay, either this is true or it's not, but it's 50-50. It's binary. It's either true or it's not. So I was like, I'm gonna go home and I'm going to read every book written about Christianity, I wanted to read about Islam, Allah, to read about Buddha. I
Yeah.
read books about atheism. I read a
Yeah.
book about polytheism.
Yeah.
I read every book you can think of
Yeah.
on God, religion views, and so
Mhm.
of it, let me actually add this. The reason I did that was to just finally formulate my belief. I just wanted to
Hmm.
figure am I out on this. I wanted to kind of draw a line in the sand and be like, okay, I'm either a Christian or I'm not, but I'm tired of limbo. So I read all these books, and I am eventually. I'm a very like and it's not always true. So, in some things, I'm much more kind of artsy fartsy, but in this way, I was very kind of critical. Very critical, very very like analytical, and I
Mhm.
wanted Christianity. I wanted to believe what was true. You follow? I wanted to
I
believe what
follow.
was not just what sounded good.
Mhm.
And so Christianity I believe in because I believe it to be true.
Okay.
And very, 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 I'm very specific about what truth is. But to me, the
Mhm.
evidence is absolutely in favor of Christ. And that's what made me a Christian. And anyway, so you asked me about Springfield and stuff. I'm very thankful to Springfield for all of the churches in the Bible Belt because I think had it not had that level of theistic influence, I may have not been prompted to eventually explore my faith and eventually become saved because it took a lot. It took 20 years of me being just like constantly, you know I don't know, fed Christianity, and eventually it took Brooke, my wife, to get saved before I finally gave it a shake. And so I'm thankful that I don't live and so like dude, if I had been born in like China or something where Christianity's banned, I don't I would I don't know how I would have ever became saved. I really don't. I don't see how that would have ever happened.
Yeah. They say like your environment really influences you. And in this case, it was that for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, even though, and I want to specify, it wasn't because Christianity is one of those things where I don't believe in it because the majority does. It's really not. It's
Correct.
it's I believe in it
You
because I
explored it. Yeah. I was like, so I'm a practicing Muslim, but I was very similar to you. My parents, took me to mosque and everything. 20 years, right? 18 years. It's about the same time as you. And I was like, whatever, blah blah blah. And just one day, it just kind of hit, and I did something very similar. I read about things about Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism. I read all about it, and it just made sense for me personally that hey, like Islam is what I grew up on, but it just clicked and it made sense. And I read history, and I was like, okay, this is what I do. And like you said, it's that freedom of religion that this country allows you to pick and choose from, right? And not judge others. Whatever works, as long as you contribute well to society, you're kind, you're good, you don't harm anybody or harm things, I think any religion will work. It's just based on how you grew up, but also what just feels right in your heart, right? That's the biggest thing. Because in reality, between you and me and whoever's listening, all of the main Abrahamic religions teach you nothing different. They're all about don't harm thy neighbor, be peaceful, do charity, be kind to people, and don't hurt anyone. That's really the main lessons. It's about being a good source of humanity to others and serving others. And that's really what religion is. And it kind of gives you, I would say, it gives you the discipline and the belief in something greater than yourself. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's what all major religions teach you, right? They're, and obviously we being, you being Christian, me being Muslim, and, there's all these other religions out there. There's always people that take it to extremes and they hurt people and they're harmful. And that's where I think religion gets a bad name. But the reality is all religions are good. It helps you serve a higher purpose. And that's my thinking and philosophy on it all. So I'm
Yeah,
glad that we had a very similar journey.
sorry. Certainly, the principles come from originally the Ten Commandments. I mean, the
Yeah.
very first
10.
thing was the Ten Commandments: "Thou shalt not steal," and so on and so forth.
Correct.
And that really set the tone for, like you said, all the Abrahamic religions.
Mhm.
And so, whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Muslim or whatever it might be, the principles in terms
Mhm.
of ethically and morally, the principles are sound. Treat your neighbor as you'd want to be treated, the golden rule.
Mhm.
But it's worth noting, and this is not my sort of like debate or anything, but it's worth noting that all of those principles and constructs stemmed from Moses and
Correct. Yeah. It all comes from, we call him in Arabic as Musa, but same thing. It's the same. They all stem from that original story, and it's just kind of cool how different regions adapted to different ways. But it all teaches the same lesson,
It
which is
does.
kind
You
of
know, here's
cool.
something cool.
Yeah.
I learned this kind of, well, maybe a few years ago, but it always was fascinating to me. So, and we'll have to maybe open a Bible or something to verify confirm. But I'm pretty certain here.
Yes.
If you go back to the Old Testament and you look at
Mhm.
Abraham, okay,
Mhm.
Abraham had, of course, his son Isaac,
Correct.
and Isaac was kind of the lineage that the Bible follows. But
Correct.
he had another son.
Ishaq. We call him Ishaq. I It's Isaac and Ishaq. Shoot, Ishaq and Ishmael.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Ishmael. So you probably call him we call him Ishmael. I don't know if that's the same name you guys keep, because so Isaac is Ishaq, Ismail is I'm not sure, but that's where Islam stems from. Ishmael, yeah. So yeah, so you guys call him Ishmael, we call him Ishmael as well, yeah. We stem from Islam stems from Ishmael.
So yeah, that isn't that
Yeah,
interesting? So it all came down to Abraham's sons. That
correct.
entire sect, that whole
Yeah,
religion of Islam came from Ishmael.
correct.
And what's interesting is, or what I think's interesting anyway, is Ishmael was not so Abraham marries Sarah, right? Or Sarah.
Correct. Correct.
And
Sarah, yeah.
their son is Isaac. But before that, she couldn't have kids.
Correct.
So
100 some
Abraham
years old. They're both. I,
cheats on his
y-
wife, and
no, not his wife. He was 100 something. They say very old.
right. And so
Yeah.
he sleeps with a slave, with
Hmm.
one of his slaves.
Hmm.
And then their offspring is Ishmael, and
Correct.
then Islam is created. And but of course the what's interesting to me is like, what if he had not done that? What if he had just
Mm.
never slept with I can't remember her name.
Hajar. We call her Hajar.
Yeah, yeah. What if he had never slept with her? Would Islam exist? I don't think it would. I
I
think
don't
it would
know. It's hard
literally
to say.
entire religion, and that's
Correct.
fascinating to me. It goes to
Yeah.
show like the domino effect of what you might perceive as a little thing you did can start in motion and massive chain of events.
Correct. It's very interesting. It's very cool because, and then to think about it, like Judaism stems from all of Ibrahim's teachings. So his original teachings, and then his sons are the ones that they split a little bit. So it's kind of cool.
It
History
did.
is very cool. It's very cool exploratory knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question, kind of a theology question for you.
For sure.
I don't know as much as I'd like to know about Islam. I've read a little bit of the Quran, and I've read a few books on it, but I don't know as much as I'd like to. And so here's my question:
Mm.
what do you think? Because I was reading online one day, I read that Islam followers generally have this view on Christ's crucifixion.
Hmm.
I think it's called the substitution theory. They think that it
Yes.
was Judas who was crucified, but looked like Jesus. And then there's I think it's called the swoon theory.
Hmm.
What was it? You might have to help me here, but I think the
Okay.
swoon theory is where he didn't ever die. Maybe he
So
survived.
okay, so this is what Islam says. The Romans are the ones that crucified, we call him Isa alayhi salam. So he's a prophet for us. He's the second to last prophet in the lineage, and he talks about Muhammad, right? So alayhi salam, we call him, it's like a peace be upon him, basically, because we say that to all of our prophets. It's a blessing. So we say that his body died, right? But his soul and entity never did. Like Allah, God pulled him out before he died, and he's to return and talk about against the Antichrist or whomever, like that, the person that's supposed to be like, it's not the Dajjal, it's the Antichrist. It's the equivalent, Dajjal. Yeah, that's what we call in Arabic. He basically is the evil person. It's like the signaling the end of days. And so at that time, Isa, or Jesus at that time, will come back and be like, no, this is that man is incorrect, and there'll be followers and all that. So we believe that he was lifted. So his body was gone, but his soul and his entity was lifted. So that's where we, I think, differ, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was reading on these different kind of, where Islam have these different theories.
Hmm.
I was just curious which one you were. So you believe that he never died.
He never died. His soul never died. Does that make sense? But his body was destroyed by the Romans, because they were, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's our theory. That's our belief.
Yeah,
Correct.
and that's kind of another can of worms. Is I kind of believe that we don't that we're the same way. We don't die spiritually. Like
Correct.
when I die someday, my body will die. But
Yes.
in other words, I believe in the afterlife. I think
Yeah.
that actually there is a next.
There is, yeah, yeah. There is. I mean, in the Quran, I mean, I don't know what it is in Christianity, but in the Quran, it's mentioned that there will be a day of judgment. I can't remember if you guys have the same thing or something similar, but we do have, like, from what I understand, because I know Christianity changes from each different branch that's part of, but we believe in something very similar, like a purgatory, which is we call it the bazarka in Arabic, and then there's heaven and hell, which is Jannah and Jahannam. It's kind of cool. So it's very similar in that sense. My thing
There's
is, it's very cool that we have all these the major rules in theological religion. It's the same. So when I see people like on the internet and they're like fighting each other, I'm like, you guys are dumb. We literally believe in 99% of the same stuff. It's like you're just causing more division. Instead, why don't you talk about and explore how your religions are similar and how you can achieve peace and how you can work together to do something great for society? If Sam, for example, if we just took the time to understand one another and helped people be better people, the world would be a better place, in my opinion. Would there still be struggling areas and people and things? Absolutely. You're always going to have it. But the thing is, we try as humans to cause a divide rather than compromise and understand one another. I think it's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and certainly I think when you look at religion, you look at theology, like you said, they're all based on mostly on the Torah, the first five books of the Old Testament. So, in terms of the principles and stuff, so I think what we need globally is more religion. Even if it's not, listen, I would say specifically more Christianity, but even if it's not Christianity, even if it's Islam, or the idea is when we believe in a higher power, we're now held
Correct.
accountable. We're not,
Exactly.
it removes kind of the anarchy. We're not
Hmm.
just people, however, we're not going to treat them with kindness. There's going to be a level of compassion.
Hmm.
Because we're held accountable. We're held to a higher.
Correct.
So ultimately, religion's a good thing. I would say this,
Hmm.
and it's the analytical kind of side of my brain that I don't have in everything. It's interesting. Some things I'm not analytical at all, but
Hmm.
in this area I am. So I've heard some people say before, because I love. Have you heard of apologetics? Is apologetics is like basically just the debate. Like that's like form of religious debate. And I love apologetics. I don't love arguing, but I love kind of the I don't know, I just love the debate. I just enjoy that. And so anyway, where was I going with that? So when I've spoken to others just on a kind of a debate level, I've heard people say before, like, well, no religion is true. They're all different and they're all similar, but they're all different. And the idea is, or I'm sorry, what he said was they're all true. They're all because they're so similar.
Hmm.
We differ kind of on the little things, but ultimately they're all true. All religions lead to the same God. So in other
Hmm.
words, you call Allah is the same God that I call Jesus, that the next person calls Buddha. It's all the same entity. Have you heard of that before? I believe it's called universalism, maybe.
That's kind of what I believe in too, for the most part. I genuinely think that humans are connected in that sense. And I think if, like you said, we had more religion, I think we'd be better towards one another. But that's another story.
Yes.
Another day
But
for another
like
dollar.
I thought about that and I really thought through that and I thought, is that possible? Could that be the case? Could it be true that Christianity, you ever heard that analogy where it's like the five blind men and the elephant or something, and they're all kind of
Yes.
feeling a different piece, and some guy's like, no, it's a snake, and some other guy's like, no, it's a whatever, but they're all feeling the same elephant.
Yeah.
That's kind of the analogy, it's we're all looking at the same God, we just have a different perception. So I thought of that, and I thought through that, and I thought, could that be the case? And here's my issue with that is the problem is if you look at every religion, if you look at Christianity, you look at Islam, then you look at Buddha, they all contradict one another in some capacity.
Of course, there's always some contradiction.
Well, and it's major contradiction. It's not like a small, it's a major like pillar on each one. And
Hmm.
so if they're all true,
Hmm.
that's a logical issue because
Conundrum.
it's a conundrum. Thank you.
Yes.
They're all contradicting. So that's my problem is either one of them is true and the rest are false.
Mm.
None of them are true, but they can't all be true. So that was what really got me to like really start reading and stuff because I realized like, okay, we can't all be right here. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It's impossible. So I want to make sure that I'm educated, I'm informed.
Yeah.
Is I really don't believe in universalism and the all roads lead to heaven. I think that's like you said, it's a conundrum.
Yeah, and I don't, you and I will have to have this debate, like this friendly debate, because I would love to pick your brain on it. Because I think when you and I will talk about it, I think we'll always have our own answers and respect each other, and I think there's beauty in that, right? But I think the world isn't ready for that conversation. That's more of
Well,
an in-person thing.
the cool thing is, here's the cool thing. The cool thing
Yeah,
is the initial, and I've got a friend who actually I'd love to refer him to your podcast.
yeah.
He runs Maven now.
Okay,
He runs the cologne company.
okay.
He's very entrepreneurial, very. Him and I have a lot of kind of overlap. I think he'd be a great guest for your show. But anyway, we've got a lot of kind of apologetic theological conversations. And one thing him and I have discovered is the initial argument of is there a God is
Yeah,
actually very simple. You
yeah.
know, is there a God? Basically, theism versus atheism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus polytheism, I suppose. That's actually a very simple argument.
It
It's
is
complicated. The evidence is extremely in line with the creator, intelligent
correct.
as, and it's not even controversial. It's actually quite really pretty clear. There
Hmm.
is it is a scientific certainty that matter cannot result from nothing.
Correct.
It can't. The laws of physics bound that to be true. We
Hmm.
cannot have something from nothing. So it's not only is it kind of a scientific certainty, but it's a really even more so, it's a logical certainty. That's the easy thing is discovering, okay, God or no God. That's really pretty simple. Where it gets complicated, where the debate really comes in is, okay, who is God?
Yeah,
And that's really where you've got to be very informed, I think.
exactly.
That's my thing. Not to be I don't know, but that's when you look at atheists,
Yeah,
they kind of roll their eyes and they're like, oh, people who believe in God are so stupid. They're the sheep and yada yada yada. And I've always been like, dude, it would take more faith to be an atheist than it would to be a theist because
correct.
you're believing in things that we've never seen happen.
Yeah, and as someone that studied medicine and dentistry, I just need to put like look at like the atlas of the human body and be like, take a look at that and recreate that if
Yeah,
you
like even the
can.
cell is amazingly
Exactly,
complex.
exactly. So I don't even bother with them. I'm like, look at the cell and tell me you can do that. With the day you can create a cell as complex and as perfect as that, then we have a discussion. Until that point, I don't agree with you.
Well, and it's not even, I don't say that to be like, you know, critical or unkind. The thing with atheism to me is it's such a leap. I mean,
Yes.
so many things you're kind of assuming are true that are massive, massive leaps. Like, for instance, you can even go back, like, evolution is one thing. We evolved from apes and stuff. I think that's by itself, very unlikely. But even you go back before that, where in the world did like the planets come from? Where did we get, how did they know to orbit around each other in just the right sequence at just the right time? How did that start? And you say, well, it's Big Bang, big explosion. I don't know about you, Ahad, but have you ever seen a massive explosion create perfect order? I have.
No,
I've only ever
no.
seen explosions cause chaos and destruction.
A
So
lot of entropy, I think, or entropy, or yeah, entropy, I think. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
destruction.
yeah. And so my buddy, my friend Graham, we've so there's this theological kind of concept theory called the Kalam cosmological argument. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. What is it?
Really good. It's, in my opinion, it's the best argument for God that there is. So you actually go about it kind of from an atheistic perspective. So you assume, okay, there's a big bang, right?
Yeah.
Big explosion. There was nothing, and then all of a sudden there's this big explosion, and you've got the Big Bang. But there's a few criteria that would have to exist for this Big Bang. So you say, well, what caused the Big Bang? Energy, right? Some level of energy had to have been in the atmosphere to cause this implosion and then explosion. But there's a few criteria for that energy. So A, the energy had to have been outside of time, right?
Hmm.
The energy would have been there before the beginning because the Big Bang was the beginning. So the energy was there outside of time. So that's the first thing. It's timeless. The second is the energy had to have some level of sentience because it
Correct.
created sentient beings like us. Sentience can't evolve. It just can't. Not
They
a
can't.
physical reality. You cannot find sentience in our brain.
No.
We just have it. So this energy had to be outside of time and sentient, right? And
Hmm.
then the thing about the energy is it really couldn't have been um like what's the word? Matter. It
Hmm.
would have been kind of not of our universe because it created the universe. So even when you go about it from the Big Bang, you've got a sentient energy that's outside of time. Well, you just described God, right? So even when you go about it even when you look at it through the atheist lens, all roads lead back to a creator eventually.
So it's definitely something interesting, and yeah, I'll have to look into it. I'll text you about it. I'll
Yeah,
read some
sure.
things about it. That'd be kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
I always love to talk about that stuff. That's kind of my favorite conversation to have because it's so everybody has kind of their own interpretation,
Mhm.
and it's so much more interesting than talking about like the weather we're having or something. I love to talk about religion and philosophy.
Yes.
You ever like, gosh, do I have free will? I don't know. Give me a call. I'd love to talk about that. It's like my favorite.
Honestly, Sam, I miss that the most. Coming home from work and just be like, "Oh, Sam's in the office. Let's just go talk some like go talk shop."
Yeah, exactly.
It's always fun. It's always a good time. But
It is.
that's good. All right. So Sam, last couple of questions, and I always ask all my guests this questions, and they're a little bit deep, but let's just see what you say. If you could describe Sam in one word, who is Sam
One word.
and why?
I would say, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on the word I want to use. I would say idealistic.
Okay.
And why? At the end of the day, all of my kind of aspirations, dreams, goals, ultimately, I just want to have an impact. I
Hmm.
want, I love, first of all, I love our country, but also on a broader level, I love humanity. I
Hmm.
love, I love our species. I want to help us. I want to make a positive impact. So that's kind of always where my brain is going. So I'd say idealistic.
Okay. Very cool. I like it. I like it. My
What about you?
second.
If you had one word to describe yourself,
You're the second person ever to ask you that question. I actually have an answer for you.
okay.
And that's because he asked me and I thought about it. But for me, it's dogged. And why dogged is because no matter how many times I've failed or, been disappointed, I always get up. Right. So I have this ability to, no matter what happens to me in that moment, I know that I can always get back up and just do it again. You know, the Japanese proverb is fall down 7 times, get back an eighth. And that's like engraved in my brain. And so it describes me well too. So I would say I have a very dogged personality. I never give up. When I set a goal, I go after it. I never
Yeah,
stop.
that's
The
good.
relentless, the what they say is the relentlessness.
I
I think that's
love that word. I was just about to say that.
yeah,
Relentless. I love that
relentless.
tenacious, relentless.
Yeah,
If I could have like a second word
yeah,
that's beneath, I would say relentless or
yeah.
tenacious or dogged. That is a very core trait that I think is essential. for anybody who wants to be successful, you have got to be relentless.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's a great.
Thank you. So my other question to you is, when you die and you have a gravestone, or what's that thing they call a eulogy? Also, I know some people do eulogies. What do you want to what do you want that person on your eulogy or your gravestone to say? It could be any amount of words or lines.
Man, let's see. That's a tough. While I think about it, I'll put the question back on you. What would you like?
For me, it would be, this man spent his life dedicating his life to furthering and bettering humanity and society, having thoughtful discussions and debates, and someone that had an impact and left the world better than it was when he was born into it.
Yeah, that I would honestly, I would. This is a cop out answer, but I would almost want to have the same thing. I might say, um, I might say that and I wouldn't say this on my tombstone or anything, but I would say that I strive for tremendous kind of resources. I want to be very. I mean, it sounds bad. I want to be very wealthy,
Mhm,
but it's not because I want to be wealthy. It's because I want to use. I think that money is probably the most effective tool in
mhm,
creating impact. What money allows you to do is it allows you to have influence, and it allows you kind of a stage. And so you can have the stage and you can have the influence, then you can affect the change that you want to affect.
mhm.
So that's really the end of the day is I'd kind of want, if I were to reflect back on my life, I'd really want to say like I achieved all of the kind of power that I wanted to achieve, but then I used it for good.
Yeah.
I used it
It's
to help people and to be compassionate. I didn't use it for my own whatever, my own comfort or greed or something. That would be
correct.
what I'd want to frame my life around.
I
And
love it.
honestly, let me bring it back even one step further. Is at the end of the day, so I started a company. You haven't heard of this one. So I
Mm,
started a company before Arion. I was going to try to build some condos down at the lake. Did
mm,
not. I pretty much ran out of money. Kind of. I wasn't able to get the equity, but the idea of it was, we want to. The slogan was actually Latin. It was "Ida Facere Ultra," and in Latin
mm.
that means "build beyond."
I love that.
So, and the idea of that was we want to help populate heaven. We
Mhm,
want to point people towards the love of God, towards the Lord. We want them to come to know Christ and go to heaven, right? So that
mhm.
we're not only changing the world, but we're changing heaven. And that really is still a very central, like that. If you were to ask me kind of in one phrase, what's your goal? I would say that. Ultimately, I
Mm.
have a very kind of missionary is the wrong word, but I certainly have a very like, I have a desire to point people toward to the Lord. I
That's
think
a fun.
TLC is a very adequate vessel in which to do that.
Lovely. Wow. That's strong, man. That is very strong. So, my last thing to you is, do you have any parting advice for the audience?
Goodness. Well, I'll start with saying this. I don't know. I'm learning every day. I certainly don't know the answers when it comes to success and whatnot. But I will say this: read books. Read as many books as you can. You want to absorb as much information and data as you possibly can, because the more data you have, the better, the more accurate decisions that you can make. So you want to fill your brain full of data and information. That's the first thing. The second thing is kind of what you said: be relentless. Be be tenacious. You're going to fail. You are going to fail at various points in your life. You have got to keep going. You cannot let that hold you down. The key to success, I think, at the end of the day, is kind of never giving up. I mean, that if you're giving yourself all kinds of information and data and you never give up, then success is not an if, it's a when.
Correct. Absolutely. I think you summarized what I've learned in the past decade of my life very succinctly. And I agree with that.
Yeah. So, but again, I like hearing what you have to say, because oftentimes, you say something that is another angle that I hadn't thought of. So I want to put it back on you again. What would you say to that question?
So, I would say for me, it would be the pursuit of excellence. And why the pursuit of excellence is, you know, there is no perfect in life, right? Ever. You can strive for perfection, but it's just going to drive you insane. So my thing is, strive for excellence, do your best every day, even if some days it's 60%, 70%. If that's all you can give, then that's totally fine. and it falls along with that relentless pursuit of excellence. So
You say
as
strive
you
for excellence. What is
yeah,
excellence?
excellence to me is showing up and doing your best every single day in even the most mundane tasks
That's
and
good.
just keep going at it until it just makes sense.
That's good. I like how you said even the most mundane task. It's easy to want to be excellent in the things you enjoy. It's
Mhm.
easy for me to want to be excellent in tennis.
Mhm.
It's not easy for me to want to be excellent in cardio.
Correct.
But you hit the nail on the head, man. If you want to be successful, you have got to be just as diligent in the things you don't like. Because the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, you're not going to like every area. You know what I mean? You're not going to like it all.
No.
I'll put it this way: in my job, I manage apartments, and I don't enjoy delinquency management. I don't enjoy calling people and getting them to pay. I don't like that. I don't like doing that. It's uncomfortable, but you have to. You've got to do it. It's a part of the job. So I want to make sure I'm just as excellent in that as I am in, the part I do love, giving tours, being like, hey, hyping up the product. I love doing that. But you're right. You've got to be excellent and you've got to be just as committed to every area, mundane and the stuff you enjoy.
That's pretty much it, Sam. I want to say thank you for being on the podcast. It was a great conversation, and I hope to have you on in a couple years.
Hey, come back anytime. I would love to come on and talk about whatever.
Yeah,
You got to be careful. You can't if you get me on some kind of tangent, you got to be careful with me. You got to keep me on what you want me to talk about. So
totally fine. That's
I,
good.
it's funny. My wife Brooke. I know we're wrapping up here, but my wife Brooke, she's very like she almost has to give me like pep talks before we meet somebody because she's like, Sam, don't 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 start talking about TLC, and then don't start talking about the Kalam cosmological argument. Like, don't do that. They want to talk about the weather. They want to talk about like their day. Most people aren't want to talk about the Kalam. What or if they have free will, they just don't. So anyway, I gotta Brooke keeps me online, keeps me on
That's
task.
huh, that's a sign of a good partner. That's a good thing.
It's
That's
the
a
best.
good thing. It's the
Otherwise,
best.
I'd just figure out. Otherwise, I'd probably alienate everybody. Be like, dude, I don't want to talk to the freaking couch philosopher there.
That's fair. Thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
To the listeners out there, thank you again for joining us on another, episode of the podcast. Stay happy and stay blessed. Take care.